In this video, we're going to do a quick review of verbs of motion. This isn't meant to teach you everything about it, but just to sort of jog your memory from what you learned before. Remember that in Russian, we sometimes differentiate between verbs in some instances that we don't always do it in English. So for example, in Russian, we make a differentiation between whether you are going on foot versus by vehicle. We also differentiate whether you're going in multiple directions or in kind of an aimless direction versus in one direction. So right now I'm going to focus first on the verbs for going by foot. These are used more than the others, partly because if you're within a city and you're not really focusing on how you're going, you might just default to the foot verbs, even if you were going by vehicle. You would definitely use the by vehicle verbs if you were focusing on the way you were being transported, or whether it was obviously someplace far away, like between cities or countries. So here I'm going to talk about a little bit about the different forms of the verbs of motion for going by foot, and then these concepts will follow through for the vehicle verbs as well. So first we have this column here, the first column. This is the multi-directional column, and for going by foot, it's ходить. When do we use multi-directional? In the past tense, we'll use it for they used to often go, or they went and came back. Они ходили в парк could either be they used to go to the park, multiple round trips, or one round trip. They went to the park and they came back. How do you tell a difference between those two? It's usually either context, or you might mention using an adverb, like they used to go to often to the park. Present tense. Они ходят в парк. They often go to the park. It sounds like multiple round trips. It sounds like some kind of habit. Future tense. They will often go to the park. Они будут ходить в парк. Sounds like they have a plan maybe to go every Saturday, or they want to get in shape, so they're often going to go. So that's when you would use the multi-directional ходить. Now, second column here, идти. In the past tense, this is possible but kind of rare, so I'm going to put a little kind of bracket around it. When could we use it in the past? We could use it when they were on their way somewhere, something happened. So, когда он шел на работу, он увидел своего друга. While he was on his way to work, he saw his friend. You can see how this is relatively rare, but it can happen. Present tense, for example, он идет на работу. He is on his way to work right now. And sometimes it helps if you think about what the visualization would be. So he is on his way to work works really well with this arrow going in one direction. Whereas he goes to work every day would be ходит, more than one direction. And then future is sort of similar to past. And I'm going to put it in brackets also because it's not all that common, but possible. So when they will be on their way somewhere, something will happen. So you can see how that's kind of rare. Maybe I might say something like, tomorrow when I'm on my way to work, I will buy a coffee, or something like that. But it's relatively rare. And now we're going to look at this third column, παιτεί, which is actually the perfective. In the past tense, when would we use παιτεί? They went, and they aren't back yet. So, они пошли в кино. They left for the movies, and they haven't come back yet. Whereas, if they went to the movies and came back, we would use ходить. Они ходили в кино. And then, with παιτεί, we cannot have present tense. Since it's a perfective verb, there's no possible present tense. For present, we have to choose one of the other two. And then future tense with παιτεί is pretty common. They will go one time. Они пойдут в кино. They will go tomorrow to the movies. Or sometimes if we're focusing on the beginning of leaving. Они пойдут в 3 часа. They will leave at 3 o'clock. And that's why I put a little arrow and then some dots after it. It's kind of, in some instances, focusing on the beginning of the action. So if we compare our verbs of motion for walking that we just looked at, ходить, идти, and пойти, the same exact patterns will hold for the verbs for vehicles, ездить, ехать, поехать. And if you look at the conjugation of these verbs, they're really similar for a reason. So ходить and ездить have very similar conjugations. Я хожу, он ходит, они ходят. Я езжу, он ездит, они ездят. Идти and ехать are also very similar. Я иду, ты идешь, они идут. Я еду, ты едешь, они едут. And пойти, поехать are basically the same verbs, just with a prefix. Я пойду, ты пойдешь, они пойдут. Я поеду, ты поедешь, они поедут.